Hi guys, so this is the last tutorial for this week. This is going to be going over our eyeballs. So we went over our hand, our body structure, and now we're going to go over my favorite part, which is eyeballs. So some of you may know, but I worked in optics for 5 years. I worked both on the retail side where I helped customers get glasses custom fit for them, as well as working on the doctor side where I would pre-test patients and help them order contacts. So I know a lot about eyeballs, which gets the advantage of having nice glasses. So when most people draw eyeballs, what they typically use to draw is an oval and with a circle inside it, which isn't wrong, but there's a little bit more steps to that. So I want you to follow along. I would say this is probably about medium to slightly harder tutorial that I've ever taught, just because there's a lot more steps if you're doing just strictly eyeballs. So let's get started. What I'm going to start out with first is a large circle. Actually, that's a little too big. I'm going to actually make that smaller. Again, there's a bird in the bend. All right, that's actually not too bad. We'll do this. So I have a circle, and what I'm going to do next, and it may not make sense right now, but it will absolutely make sense later. I'm going to create a vertical line going through my eyeball, and then I'm going to make a horizontal line through that. So it's going to look somewhat like a target. Once I have these two lines in the middle of my circle where we have 4 quadrants, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put 2 more circles. I like to start with the smallest one first, which is right here, where these 2 lines intersect. And then my next circle is going to be medium, around the smaller circle. Kind of looks like a donut or a target, whichever you're fancy. So what you've just created is the pupil, where it allows light to come in, that way you can see. You've created the iris, where the color of your eye is. And then the white part, which is your eyeball. We're not done. So I'm going to switch over to my green marker so the next part will make a little bit more sense. So this is that part where I talked about people like to draw ovals to represent an eyeball. Again, it's not exactly wrong, but there's definitely a way to do it more realistically because it's not exactly an oval. There's a little bit more steps to it. So let me show you. What I'm going to do on my little line right here is I'm going to create a C. So it's like top C, bottom C. Got a C. Yeah. And then on the other side, I'm going to create an arrow or a sideways V. So C, V. And this is where you start to create the illusion of eyelids. That gives the oval shape to it. So what you're going to do is you're going to start at the top of your C, and you're going to connect to the top part of your arrow or your V. But instead of going straight across, we're going to kind of go up just slightly, touch the iris, and come down. So let me show you. I'm going to start off with a slight slope up, touch my iris, and come down to my arrow. That is the top part of my eyelid. Now let's do the bottom one. It's not going to look exactly the same because if you look closely, especially on my eyes, I'll get a little closer for this one. Whenever I'm opening, I have a little bit more of a dip, especially on my bottom part. So that's what we're going to represent. So again, I'm going to use the bottom part of my C, bottom part of my V or arrow. I'm going to slope slightly downward, come underneath my iris, and here. And this again is where the illusion of an oval with eyeballs, but more realistic. So we have our eye, our iris, our pupil. We have the outline of our eyelids, but we're not exactly done either. So if, again, I'm going to use my eyes in this camera as an example. Whenever my eyes are open, guys, you'll notice this fold that I have right here. This is the skin when it's pulled back and I'm allowing myself to see. Now, if I were to close my eyes, you'll notice I don't really have a fold because the skin is now stretched to allow to close my eyes. But when I open, the line is back. So what we're going to do to help represent where that line goes is we're going to use that big circle that we made earlier. Now we're not going to connect things down to our eyelids. That's not how this works. But we are going to use our large circle to help guide us. So I'm going to kind of follow and trace the top curve of the circle. I'm going to break off right here. Now, for some people, younger people usually have some type of little bit of lines down here. Older people, it's a little bit more obvious. But in this tutorial, I'm just going to add a few lines, at least underneath. And again, I'm going to use my larger circle to help guide these lines. So I might do like a slight line here and another slight line here. All right, we have eyelids. We're still not done. I'm going to use my blue marker for this part. So we are going to create what people love to draw and yet love to draw incorrectly, in my opinion. Eyelashes. I know I say that there's not a wrong way to do it, but if you're trying to do realistic eyeballs, there is a right way to do it, in my opinion. So instead of me doing a bunch of lines that look like this, I'm going to show you the right way, in my opinion, how this works. When I do an eyelash, I kind of do like almost like a check mark slightly. So what you're going to do is you're going to have like a little circle. You're going to come down a little bit and flick up. And that's what's going to create an eyelash. We're going to do several of them on here and fan them out. So I'm going to start over here where my V is, because the V represents that this is the part of my eye that's closest to my ear, versus the C, which is the closest to my nose. So what I'm going to do is come right here, make a little dot so I know where I'm starting. I'm going to come down and up. So I have eyelashes here, and kind of, cluster them a little bit more in the corners if I want. But as I start to come towards the center of my eye, my lines get straight. And this is because you have to understand an eyeball is not flat, it's round, it has depth. So if you were to put something on it, it should fan out. As I continue with my eyelashes, they'll start to turn direction. There we go. And so this is your top eyelashes. Now for your bottom ones, they're similar, but more spread out and usually a lot shorter. So I'll show that on here. Kind of same method, just a little bit upside down. And as I get towards the center, it looks like straight lines. But as I continue, it will start to have that curve. And there you go. You made an eyeball, guys. Like I said, I would say this is probably in my more medium and slightly more challenging tutorials because eyes are really complex. But if you can follow these tutorials, you'll get really, really good at drawing these things. And this way you won't have to use all the steps every time you do an eyeball. So again, if you have any questions, please email me, ask me on Schoology, ask me in class. I'm more than happy to answer as best I can if time provides it. So, all right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And again, I cannot wait to see you all. All right, bye-bye, guys.